Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 12:45.34. Thank you all for coming to the Agricultural Development Committee meeting. Just want to recognize that people are participating here from different parts of the Nuu-chah-nulth territories, all over the region, and doing work on these fine lands. So just want to appreciate that. And we're going to go around and introduce everybody. I will start. My name is Heather Shobe. I am a producer with Eden Street Farm and Gardening and the chair of this fine committee. And we'll go around. How about Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Reimer, and I'm also a producer from Noel Reimer Reason Farm. I'm currently the president and market manager down at the Spirit Square Farmers Market.
Wait, I got to interject because notice to everybody that we are being live streamed to YouTube, and that's an important thing to know. So hello, everybody out there, wherever those cameras are. And there is a way for you to participate in our meetings. Even you can send your questions or comments to responses at acrd.bc.ca if you have anything, and then we'll talk about those at the end. Thanks. Go ahead, Tanya.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Tanya Shannon from Shannon Farms. I manage the cabin in our agritourism. The boys take care of all the cows and the dairy.
Hello, Helen Finetti, Graham School District Trustee.
Hello, I'm Anna Lewis. I'm a small scale producer and I'm the executive director of the Alberni Valley Food Security Society.
I'm Star Heroff and I'm a producer that focuses on wool and flowers, and my firm is Morningstar Woolen, spelled the English way.
Hello, everybody. I'm Wayne Smith. I'm Farmers Institute director, also I have a company, Vancouver Island Grain and Milling, and I'm a local farmer raising beef and chickens or whatever else around. Long time.
Hi, I'm Erica Gold, and I lead Eat West Coast, which is an initiative to support all things food security and food sovereignty out on the West Coast.
Hello, I'm Patty Palmer, and I'm the 4-H representative on this committee.
Hello, I'm Ann Siddle. I'm the administrator for the Alberni Fair.
Hello, I'm Russell Dyson, Coleman Meadows Farm, and a member of the Agriculture Advisory Committee.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Needham, Sustainability Planner for the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District.
And good afternoon, Alex Dyer, General Manager, Planning and Development with the Regional District. Thank you.
And I'm Kristen Cardonahue, Administrative Assistant with the Regional District.
Okay, thanks everyone. And we have a whole bunch of people online, and we're very glad you can join us today. However, you missed a great lunch, even though there was no pie. So I'll point you out. If you could introduce yourself, Penny.
Oh, good afternoon. Sorry I missed that great lunch. Aklama Penny Cote. I'm the Electoral Area Director for Sprout Lake on the ACRD and a representative on the Agricultural Advisory Committee.
Thanks. Tom?
Good afternoon, everyone. Tom O'Dell, Regional Agrologist, North Vancouver Island for the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and a small producer of wholesale nursery products at Nature Tech Nursery in Courtenay.
Thanks. Fred?
Fred Boyko, Electoral Area Director for Beaufort. Thank you.
Lisa?
Oh, Lisa Elard, Stonehaven Farm, Black Angus beef and lamb, and director on the Farmers Institute, and sit on a variety of other committees. Thanks.
Thank you. I have two Victors, but I know one of you is a Kent. But why don't we start with Victor?
Hi there. My name is Victor Martinez. I am faculty at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. I'm joining you from Musqueam territory, also known as Richmond. Thank you very much.
All right. And how about Kent
Yes,
slash Victor?
good afternoon. Yeah, I am not Victor. I'm Kent Mullinex. I am, thank you for allowing us to delegate this afternoon. I am coming to you from my small farm in Souk on the west coast of the island in the traditional territory of the Souk Nation.
Thanks. And I think last is Ione.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ione Smith. I'm a professional agrologist with Upland Agricultural Consulting, and I am zooming in from Sechelt Nation territory on the Sunshine Coast. Nice to be here.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And it is so lovely to have everybody. And look, we have a latecomer. We have Bob Collins at the end. Bob Collins from Arrowville Farm. And yeah, anyways, welcome everybody. Are there any additions to the agenda? I don't see anything. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Tanya? And did I see Sarah? All right. Motion and all in favor? Thank you. This is the part I love so much, being the chairs. You guys are great. Do we have any declarations of a conflict of interest? I see none. And then we will approve. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the agricultural development? Oh, go ahead, Anna.
I just want to make an amendment because when I read through the minutes, it said that the gleaning program had picked 14,000 pounds of cherries in July, which, man, that would be so amazing. But we had picked or whatever our last meeting was, we had picked 4,000 pounds cumulative of fruit. So although I'd like to say we're the next Okanagan cherry producing region, we're not.
Thank you, Anna. That was pretty impressive number.
I read the minutes. That's impressive. But if that's it, I will make the motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Thanks, Anna. And is there a seconder? Star, thank you very much. Oh. Okay, we'll go with Tanya. And yes, a reminder that this is the Agriculture Advisory Committee is meeting here along with the Agricultural Development Committee. And so motions need to be passed and approved by members of the ADC, not the AAC. Just a little, procedural point there. Do we have all in favor? Thank you very much. And then moving on, I am very happy to have some presentations here today. Be very interesting, and thank you for coming. So we're going to start with Ione Smith. I'll let you introduce what you're going to be talking about.
Great. Thanks very much, Heather. And Amy, feel free to jump in if there's anything you want to add. I'm going to share my screen to share my presentation with you all. And ta-da. So I'm here today to talk about 3 projects that Upland Agricultural Consulting has been working on with the ACRD over the last nearly 2 years. We started this back in sort of mid-2024, and we're at the wrapping up stage of these 3 projects. So it's exciting to be here to bring you the results of them. And you may remember that I did meet with your group, the ADC, early on in the process. So it's great to be able to come back with the result. I do want to recognize that the work that we conducted was done on the traditional territories of the Shuswap First Nation and Hupachesep First Nation territories, and the land acknowledgement intends to remind us of the colonial history of Vancouver Island and remind us that the lands and waters are a precious resource that host us and sustain our well-being. So as I mentioned, there are 3 projects specifically that I want to speak to today. The first is the Alberni Valley Food Security Emergency Plan. We also created a livestock emergency plan and an agricultural water plan. I do want to acknowledge that the projects were supported by the Investment Agriculture Foundation of BC, which is a federal and provincial partnership supporting agricultural programming across the province. And I also want to acknowledge our teammates. So we were a pretty big team. So Amy Needham, who's there with you today, and Anna Lewis, who's there with you today, were both on our team, and they helped in all aspects of the work that we did. I also have a teammate, Caslin, and we also worked with Jeff Hughes Games, who is a semi-retired professional agrologist who specializes in emergency planning, soils and drainage, and Alan Thompson, who is a water resource engineer, who helped primarily with the agricultural water plan. As I mentioned, the project timeline kicked off early in June 2024. We've gone through several stages of the projects, including background research. The livestock emergency plan was one of the first items to be completed. And then we did a lot of engagement throughout the winter of last year. So starting in September of 2024 into March 2025. We also came and did a lot of in-person engagement work, both in October of 2024, April of 2025, and most recently, again, in October of 2025. So 3 rounds of in-person engagement. We had amazing opportunities to visit a lot of farms in person, which was greatly appreciated by all the producers. We also met with Council for Agricultural Waters Supply, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. But we're on time and on target for these reports. We had always planned to have them drafted up this fall and presented to committees such as yours in November, and then we plan on going to the board next month. So I'll start off speaking a bit about the Alberni Valley Food Security Emergency Plan. There were 3 particular goals of this project. The first was to identify opportunities for the regional district in particular to better support community food security and emergency preparedness and response. And I'll just say a bit about community food security in that it's different than talking about household food insecurity. So we weren't so much looking at things like, say, affordable housing or benchmarking, salaries and things like that to ensure livability and affordability. We were really looking at community level assets around infrastructure for food security. We also looked at what were some of the priorities when thinking of recommendations in terms of what are the highest priorities for the Alberni Valley specifically to focus on, and then came up with a set of recommendations to support that. And I also want to mention that we created a separate plan for the West Coast communities. And I think Erica is in the room. So Erica is part of the Coastal Food Roundtable, and that group helped us craft the West Coast Food Security Emergency Plan, and that included Long Beach, Tofino, Ucluelet, and Bamfield, and several First Nations communities along the West Coast as well. So in terms of the report components, we specifically focused this one on the Alberni Valley. As I mentioned, we did have a previous meeting with the Ag Development Committee. We've also met with the Alberni Valley Food Security Society, the Emergency Plant Management Network. We spoke directly with staff from the City of Port Alberni as well. We met 3 times with the Alberni Farmers Institute. We undertook a emergency food security planning survey. And then we supplanted those surveys, enhanced those surveys with specific interviews with individuals or organizations that are heavily involved in the food system. We had meetings with First Nation communities, including being delegations to chief and council meetings. And as I mentioned, we had several farm site visits as well. As some side sort of interim reports or supporting reports, we also created a hazards impact food security summary and a foods needs security assessment to go along with this report. So we had 3 categories of recommendations. I just want to mention that all of our recommendations were really focused on what the regional district could do, so what was within the jurisdiction of local government to act as a leader on. We were less interested in coming up with recommendations that would need to be led by other organizations or other groups, not because they aren't important, but because the regional district can only really be responsible for its own actions within its own jurisdiction. So there's a couple of recommendations around advocacy work when it is related to topics outside of the regional district's control, but primarily we were focusing on actions that they could specifically lead. And so we broke them into 3 categories. The first one is more around the shorter term work that needs to be done to ensure that there's food security emergency management planning and preparedness. The second category is around the longer term food security actions to increase food resiliency at the community level. And there's also a third category around how the regional district can best support First Nations food sovereignty and emergency food security. And then for each recommendation, we identified who the lead and supporting actors need to be. What are the overall timelines involved? What are the overall resource levels involved? So can they be accomplished with existing budgets at the regional district level? Would a grant or additional funding be required, and so on? And then we also looked at that priority level. So I'm going to go through the actions. I'm happy to answer questions at the end of the list. There's a few slides here on the actions. The first one was around making sure that there's funding available for backup generators for cold storage. What was interesting is that when we toured Doc Plus, for example, there's quite a lot of available storage that's frozen, so frozen food potential storage, but not so much the refrigerated cold storage temperature. And refrigerated cold storage was one of the #1 things we heard from those involved in the food system as to what they would like to have access to. And then also just given the fact that due to so many of our emergencies related to power outages, the need for backup generators to support them. Secondly is to conduct a post-disaster assessment of impacts to food security. So we know that this has been done recently with regards to some of the wildfires in the area, looking at how once the disasters passed, how things were done, how they could be improved upon, and making sure that the food system questions are integrated into those discussions. Number 3 is around advocating for improved connectivity along transportation routes. That's specifically around communications connectivity, so cell phone and internet bandwidth, so that there's a possibility to improve communications during an emergency. Number 4 is to make sure that there's enough food storage at reception centers so that during an emergency, there's already food on hand and that it's been stored, not just in terms of volume of storage, but also adequacy in terms of how dry it is or the temperature of the food storage as well. Number 5 was something that came up that was a bit of a surprise to us. And it was the fact that we were able to identify that there's a real lack of a strategy available around how food would be distributed during an emergency. So if we can assume that essentially there will be some bare minimum food on hand that's being stored either by government or non-government organizations, how and who does it get distributed to during an emergency? So everyone that we spoke to agreed that this was a necessity, and most had different ideas as to who should get priority food during an emergency. So it's really spoke to the need to have that conversation before an emergency takes place so that everyone's aligned as to how that food can get distributed. Number 6 is to help provide support for producers in developing farm emergency plans. And I'll talk a bit about the livestock emergency plan in a few minutes. Number 7 is to support preparedness for livestock evacuations. So that speaks to the need for pre-identifying locations, especially where larger animals can be moved to. And also smaller animals such as sheep, they often need different types of paddocks, different requirements. So looking at what are some of the community assets and determining ahead of time where some of those animals could be brought. And also number 8 would be advocating for alternative emergency routes, specifically emergency routes that can take into consideration the types of trucks involved in moving livestock and also moving food. We heard, for example, that during the Highway 4 shutdown, it was very difficult for some food trucks, including milk trucks, for example, to get through on alternative routes. So keeping within the planning and preparedness actions category, number 9, the recommendation is to convene a meeting with large grocer retailers to discuss food distribution challenges during an emergency. We found in our engagement that these large retailers were difficult to connect with. On the West Coast, by comparison, it was easier to connect with the co-op group, for example, around the retailers there. But in the Alberni Valley, there's just more players and some really big players as well. And it would be really important to have a meeting with these retailers to figure out how they can be better integrated into a food system response during an emergency. Number 10 is to look at the opportunity to expand the Alberni Valley Gleaning Project in order to be able to mobilize volunteers during an emergency. So for example, if an emergency happened to overlap with a harvest season, and there was going to be challenges in getting food into or out of the community, there could be an opportunity to have the Gleaning Project volunteers work to help to harvest some of the fields and ensure that the food gets used locally. Number 11 is to collaborate with relevant partners to support agri-food business continuity planning efforts. So that would involve chambers of commerce and Island Health, for example, just to make sure that businesses can get back up and running as soon as possible. And number 12 would be to update the ACRD's disaster and emergency planning management plan to reference the recent planning documents that we've created. Shifting into longer term food resiliency recommendations. Number 13 is to look at promoting increased utilization of publicly owned land for agriculture and food growing. So this could range from anything such as land in waiting that's potentially going to be developed in the longer term to community gardens, to integrating edible food landscaping into parks and recreation planning and so on, but making sure that any publicly owned lands has a bit of a food growing aspect to them. Number 14 is to promote increased utilization of private agricultural lands for increased production. And so this relates to the agricultural water plan as well, and looking at how we can reduce barriers to getting land that's currently in the agricultural land reserve producing more food. Number 15 is to continue to support organizations working on public education related to food security. This relates to the regional district support to non-governmental organizations, to committees, and so on. Number 16 is advocating to the province to streamline meat processing permits and regulations. We heard from a number of producers that it's quite challenging, despite some of the overhaul to the meat inspection regulations that have happened in recent years, to ensure that the permits and regulations can be obtained and also that they can be renewed fairly easily. And lack of meat processing is a really critical component to community food security in the Alberni Valley. Number 17 is to support existing and new food and seafood processing businesses. So speaking again to the need for more processing available at a local level, we found that a lot of food is moving into and out of the community, but rarely is it being produced, processed, sold, and eaten within the valley. Sticking with the long-term food security resilience actions, number 18 is to support more refrigerated and frozen cold storage space with backup generators outside of the tsunami and inundation zone. So this again kind of relates to number 1, that first recommendation that I spoke of, but this is also looking at a more longer-term strategy for making sure that there's redundancy and resiliency in the cold storage plan for the valley. Number 19 and number 20 are connected. They're both regarding water. So number 19 is to make sure that water can still be used within cities, sort of the city of Port Alberni, and within more of the urban areas for food production and gardens year round. So even when there's higher drought levels, ensuring that irrigating is a allowable use. And number 20 speaks more to accessing water for agriculture for irrigation in the rural farming areas. And again, that's something that the agricultural water plan speaks to. Number 21 is to continue to expand the municipal organic waste diversion program, which is already underway, and look at how it can be enhanced and improved to help support the agricultural community with food production. And number 22 is to explore options for the development of a year-round permanent centralized farmers market. So that's it for the food plan specifically. Before I move into the livestock emergency plan, does anybody have questions they wanted to ask about the food security emergency plan. We'll also have time for questions at the end as well, I think. Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
see
go ahead.
anyone. And I just want to comment. I know our delegations are typically 10 minutes, but Ione, I know you've been working on these projects for years and they're very large projects and obviously very important. So we're all raptly listening, and just so everybody knows, and it'd be a little longer than 10 minutes, and that's fine with me. All right, go ahead.
Thanks, Heather. The livestock emergency plan I won't spend as much time on. We worked on this in great sort of alignment with the Farmers Institute. It identifies roles and responsibilities not just for producers, but also for the regional district. And there's 17 recommendations within the emergency plan for livestock. And those are particularly targeted at the regional district in terms of their operations and planning. So I'll just give you some examples of those recommendations. So it's to make sure that the staff at the emergency operations centers are knowledgeable about the farming community. In the past, that hasn't always been the case, but we know that there's been progress made there, so that's fantastic. It's also to support the Alberni Farmers Institute in having their members trained in emergency operations. And as I mentioned earlier, making sure that there's some sites that are pre-identified for livestock relocation. Developing a communication plan with the Alberni Farmers Institute. So we talked with the Institute about potentially having more kind of like communication hubs in different sub areas of the valley to make sure that when there is an emergency that there's some sort of mustering areas and communication opportunities to connect everyone as quickly as possible. We looked at helping to clarify the role of the regional district in terms of what their responsibilities are in agricultural emergency preparedness, response, and recovery. Continue to connect farmers to resources such as Fire Smart farm and ranch programs, and also making sure that farmers know how the ACRD is available, who within the ACRD is available, and what the ACRD's roles and responsibilities are. There's a lot, when an emergency hits, there's a lot of different levels of government involved. And so having clarity is really critical. So the last project that I want to speak to is the Agricultural Water Plan. The Agricultural Water Plan had a slightly different objective than the food security emergency plans. It was specifically to look at how we could further investigate recommendations that had been created by previous reports, such as those by the Council for Agricultural Water Supply, and drill down into the feasibility of some of those options. And so there was a lot of math involved in this one. We did some modeling. We engaged with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. We worked specifically with their team who are involved with the Agricultural Water Demand Model group, and we looked at modeling the scenario of what if all of land within the valley that was either classes 1 through 5, so that's prime and marginal farmland, that were over a quarter acre in size, were going to be farmed in the future. What would that look like, and how much potential irrigation water might it require? So we didn't include really small lots, so anything less than a quarter acre, and we didn't include land that was already being used for other uses like industrial and commercial. But we did include parcels that were bigger than a quarter acre, class 1 to 5, whether or not they were currently in the ALR and whether or not they were currently being farmed or not. So that map that you see here, the green area is the area that was included in our calculations. And that was about 175 kilometers squared, which represents only about 10% of the entire regional district. But it represents quite a lot of some of the electoral areas. For example, for Area E, the Beaver Creek, it represents approximately 88%. Whereas for Area D, Sprout Lake, because it's such a large area, it only represents 5%. You'll see that we also broke Area D into a north and a south kind of sub area for the purposes of our calculations, just based on the presence of water bodies like Great Central Lake and Sprout Lake. So just to summarize what we found in terms of the feasibility when we looked at the sheer volume of water that would be required for irrigation and the cost of some of the infrastructure, we did find that most of the options that were identified in previous reports did have a fairly low feasibility. That includes things like building regional reservoirs for irrigation even though regional reservoirs would provide some of the greatest soil supply security for water, it would be the most expensive and have the most intense levels of regulatory scrutiny and the most amount of liability in terms of insurance and just overall cost. There is potential for diversion from Great Central Lake or Sprout Lake, except for the fact that these are very important spiritual and cultural assets for local First Nations. And so partnerships would be really critical for having any diversion from those water bodies. And so at this point, the feasibility is fairly low. We also looked at creating a new agricultural water supply service, but in the absence of these larger scale infrastructure projects, it's likely unnecessary to do so. And we also looked at expansion of groundwater wells for irrigation purposes. I will just mention with that one, the feasibility is low from a valley-wide use of groundwater wells for supplying that level of value of water. However, on a farm-to-farm basis, there still is likely going to be areas where groundwater wells still make sense for irrigating. We also found that it was not feasible for creating an irrigation district, as that requires permission from the province, and the province has been moving away from that approach in recent years. There are two options that we scored as having medium feasibility. One is to partner with existing license holders to share water allocation. So this specifically speaks to Domtar Industries or Catalyst Paper Corporation. They have some existing water licenses that they are allocated to use a certain amount of volume, and they are not using 100% of that volume. And there were some initial discussions that suggested they might be interested in further discussions, although no commitments have been made. And there's likely other industrial water license users in the region who might not be using their full allocation of water. And that could be an interesting path to pursue in the future. We also looked at the reactivation of the Mackenzie Road pump station. So this is located in the Beaver Creek electoral area. We found that the feasibility for that one is also medium, and it's going to depend on a lot of current unknowns. So it's going to require some more research, but there would also be pretty high costs with doing so. Our highest feasibility in terms of options was looking at on-farm dugouts. We visited several farms that already use this tool. It also has an opportunity for use in terms of the water users community framework, and I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. So just in terms of on-farm dugouts, which were the highest viability, there are still some regulatory considerations that come with on-farm dugouts. Primarily, it's obtaining a water license for them unless they are completely isolated from interaction with groundwater. And some of them, if they're large enough, do also trigger dam safety regulations, although we found that to be fairly isolated and rare unless they're very large. And then for getting funding to help support the design and build of these dugouts, your farm would require farm tax status in order to qualify for some of the funding, and occasionally local permitting might also be required. When looking at sizing considerations, the BC Agricultural Water Calculator that's available for free online is a really great resource. We used that and came up with several different design scenarios, which are included in the report. A general rule is to look at 120% of your water demand to account for 20% losses through evaporation. And then there are a lot of different cost considerations. So excavation being the biggest one. If you're not able to, if your property isn't large enough or you don't have a use for the spoil, the material that's being removed, there's quite a lot of costs associated with removing it and disposing of it. Liners are also really expensive, as are the pipes and the pumps associated with moving the water to the crop. And then it goes sort of without saying that you can actually require quite a large footprint for these dugouts in order for them to be useful for a larger crop. So we did a few examples in the report. One is looking at a parcel of land in electoral area B, that's Beaufort. They're just over 16 hectares in size. We hypothetically said, okay, what would happen if we wanted to grow berries or a mixture of vegetables and berries that were going to be irrigated by sprinklers? Or what if we wanted to grow forage on that parcel and irrigate it by traveling gun? And so the range in size is required to meet those irrigation needs very, very, very widely. So just over 2,000 to 45,000 cubic meters of water would be required. So the berries and the vegetables require much less water than forage crops in terms of irrigation. And that equates to a land coverage of just 0.2 hectares for the smaller dugout for berries and sprinklers, or over 1.4 hectares for forage crops. Not everyone's going to have that type of land available. And then the cost considerations, we were able to calculate using different quotes that a dugout would cost about $8 to $15 per cubic meter, again, depending on a lot of factors, like if you have to move the soil material out, if you need liners, etc. So for a dugout of that size with that volume of water, the costs could range from $18,000 to over $675,000. So obviously these higher end ones are likely not feasible for farmers, but the smaller end ones with grants and other types of supports are definitely something worth looking at. For the more expensive ones, we looked also at this concept of a water users community. So this is a legal framework that's written within the BC Water Sustainability Act. So it is a legal option. And it's whereby at least 6 neighbors who are typically adjacent neighbors with existing water licenses can form this group. It's a legal group, and they can help to purchase waterworks equipment and manage it over time. So it's a shared cost arrangement for irrigation, or sometimes non-irrigation too. But in this case, we looked at irrigation, shared irrigation systems. We have one example here looking at about 370 hectares of farmland represented by 17 different parcels of land. And we calculated that it would require 700 to 900 meters cubed of water. So about 12 to 16 hectares worth of land for irrigation, just for a dugout. This could be done using several smaller reservoirs that would fill with precipitation during winter and spring, and then could be distributed in the summer or the fall across all the parcels. And so the cost would be shared amongst those users. So again, it's just a hypothetical example, but it's to show that it is a possibility. And also just to mention that water users are a tool being used in other communities around the province for shared irrigation systems. So we have a total of 10 recommendations for the agricultural water plan. The first is to advocate to the province to install a groundwater monitoring well in the Alberni Valley. But I will mention that the Council for Agricultural Water Supply does have a groundwater testing tool. I think that Anna currently has it in her possession, but she did mention at the meeting a couple of weeks ago that it is up for sharing, and the whole purpose is for farmers to be able to use it to measure different aspects of their groundwater wells. So make sure that you keep that in mind. The second recommendation is to advocate for third-party hydrologist reports for logging activities planned in farming areas. So this is in relation to feedback we heard from the farming community about some of the impacts that logging activities in the mountainous areas are having on the lowlands of the farming areas in terms of debris slides and other water flow, altering water flows and things like that, and affecting people with water licenses in the farming areas. Number 3 is to revisit the regional reservoir concept if land or capital or interest arises, but for now it's still considered low in terms of feasibility. Number 4 is to include agricultural conveyance in all modeling and costing on future work for municipal system upgrades, so that at least we can get current figures in terms of how much it would cost and who would be impacted or who would stand to benefit some of these potential upgrades. Number 5 is to look for funding to complete some hydrometric studies on Great Central Lake and Sprout Lake and any other lakes that producers are interested in using for future diversion. This isn't to suggest that this will necessarily lead to diversion in the future, but we just found that there was an overall lack of information about what the diversion impacts would be. And then lastly, number 6 is to review the impacts of what a potential partial transfer of a license would be, and consider drafting a memorandum of understanding with industrial users such as Domtar. Number 7 is to look at additional partial transfer opportunities with other large license holders. Number 8 is to support this concept of a water users community group if interest arises amongst producers. And number 9 is to continue to work with provincial officials to obtain accurate information on dugouts, to continue to communicate that information out to the community. And number 10 is to explore a regional waterworks governance body if or when there's a larger regional scale project on the table for that body to work on. And so that's it. And our next steps is to present these to the board of directors in December. And so I will stop there and stop sharing for now and answer any questions that anyone might have. Thanks for letting me go for 10 minutes, by the way.
All right, thanks, Ione. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much, Heather. Thank you, Ione, and those of you here today to listen to this. I really value these 3 reports and the value that they provide to our community. As I mentioned when Ione presented them to the Farmers Institute and others, this is we, the farming community, and those that benefit from these recommendations. I would really encourage us to take these on and ensure that these are followed through in time, and not allow these just to be reports that collect dust. And while it is very important that the regional directors and the board adopt these and provide the resources and direction to foresee these going through, it really is up to us, the community, to ensure that happens and remind them of the importance. So I would really encourage us all to talk to our directors and remind them not only now, but in the future of the importance of these. Just as an example, when it comes to emergency planning, and I've been in a number of EOCs, and in the past, very little consideration and thought and knowledge was there in the room in terms of what the needs were of agriculture. And we've seen the results of those in numerous emergencies that have happened across the province. I really commend this regional district for kind of lifting the carpet and opening up the opportunity for there to be better consideration. It'll be so important in the future when something does impact this community, and the consideration of the needs of the farming community can be front and center for the EOC. So that's very important. And I would just like to comment on the water study. While there are very many recommendations provided, I would really like to encourage the one last recommendation, and that is about the regional governance. And there is another option here, and that is that the regional district and municipality might look at their existing initiatives that they have and create one body that works with them, that includes all water interests in the Alberni Valley, that meet together and share the needs and opportunities and advocacy that's required to support, protect, and control water within our community. What I'm speaking of here is done in other communities. But here in the Alberni Valley, we need First Nations, we need the city, we need the regional district, we need the irrigation districts, water districts, farmers, and others that use water to be together, to collaborate, to push those that threaten our water sources and our water quality or otherwise, to work with us, to share information, and to ensure that our interests are met, and that water will always be available in its quantity and quality that we need. And then the other thing is this body may also ensure that when cities consider the advancement of their planning for water systems or otherwise, that agriculture and its needs can be there. And I'm not just talking about irrigation. On our own farm, we use one heck of a lot of water that has to be potable in order to clean our systems. In the event that we or anybody else ever wanted to process their foods on their properties, again, they need good quality water. So a municipal system may not provide for irrigation needs, but it is important for our existing processes to ensure we have clean quality food, and that there are opportunities for us in the future. Because developing your own water supply and even your own sewer system on your rural property to provide those needs is extremely costly. Whereas if the city or others are looking at the expansion of their services into our areas, we can work together and cooperatively to ensure that we are supporting agriculture, that those things are provided to us for our needs in the future. Thank you very much for hearing me out. And again, thanks, Ione, for your work on this, as well as all those that provided you with the input.
Thanks, Russell. Appreciate your comments. And, I think it's really important that we look at these things as there's always things to add or change or develop over time. So it's important, like keeping meeting and letting these things be iterative. Any other? Penny, go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for these reports. They're absolutely what I've been asking for, and really could have seen the need for these. So on the water reports, did you take into consider the aquifers at all? That would be my first question, and also fisheries, their needs and their how does fisheries fit into this? Thank you.
Yeah, great questions. So in terms of the groundwater piece, we did look at groundwater feasibility early on in the agricultural water plan. Based on previous engineering reports that were done, the feasibility was considered quite low, especially when looking at having enough groundwater wells to be able to supply the level or the amount of volume we're talking about for large-scale irrigation projects. And that's mainly because the aquifers that are available in the valley don't have like the pumping output rate is just not high enough in order to be able to like bring that water through large areas. However, that's why I mentioned that they still might be relevant on a farm by farm basis. So you still would need to get your water license, for example, and it might be great for you to be able to use on a per farm basis. But when looking at a community wide scale, they're just not productive enough. And so we did rule it out early as a lower feasibility in terms of community scale agriculture. With regards to seafood and fisheries, we did include that in the community food security report. So that is a consideration in terms of their needs around processing and storage, and also just sort of what they contribute in terms of community food security. But for the agricultural water plan, no, the scope was really on land-based food production for that particular project.
Thank you. I think that identifying Domtar as a partner for us going into the future is really an important piece. And I am really thankful for all the comments that Mr. Dyson brought forward. I've been trying to get a water committee for the regional district going for a few years now. And it seems like we might be on the right track, and hopefully we can get that done. I know that West Coast Aquatics is looking at water grants right now, so to do some work. That's it. Thanks.
I have a question or comment. I appreciate that, first of all, the report says, from what I've seen so far, it looks really great, comprehensive, and appreciate your presentation. I think it's great and interesting that you looked at so comprehensive land use around the regional district as to who could be producing food. And you mentioned like summer access to water for properties in the city, and you used any property over a 1/4 acre as potentially providing food. I'm just wondering if you had considered support other than dugouts for some of these properties, especially in terms of like large scale cisterns, water catchment systems on some of these smaller properties in particular. I know on my own small farm, it's something that I've installed, and it's been quite expensive. It will take a long time to get all that money back, but it's certainly really helped in terms of production, and it's a good emergency supply of water as well. And then the other part, or another option, is looking at different kinds of ways of basically storing and sinking water into the landscape. So specifically using landforms and maybe some education around different landforms, keyline design, contouring, farm design that's intended to really capture and hold water right on the land. I think that's a really important way for us to start using land in a way that captures and uses the water without expensive infrastructure, but rather at an initial design stage for new farmers in particular of any scale. Just wondering if those were looked at or how those ideas could be supported by the regional district.
Yeah, great question, Heather. So the short answer is we didn't go into a lot of detail in those. There's I think 1 page on, beneficial practices for design and irrigation efficiency, where we mentioned keyline water management and other opportunities. The cistern piece is also sort of we tangentially looked into it, and you're right, it's pretty expensive and it just doesn't seem to be as popular as dugouts at the moment, but I think they especially play a key role in for some smaller properties because they tend to take a smaller footprint. And that could be something worthwhile looking into for some of those smaller operations for sure. But no, our real focus was definitely on the dugouts for that particular report.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I understand you look at agriculture, people are often thinking of those big portions. So I just want to recognize all the small people and the little bits of food. When you think of emergency food security, as if people have a garden that's got a little bit of water left over, that's a big part of our community security.
Definitely.
Thanks. And any other comments or questions? Erica.
I just wanted to comment how much I appreciate you bringing up that point because, the West Coast is not significant in the agricultural footprint, but our water issues are precluding more growing right now. And there was quite a few years ago, the District of Tofino provided a subsidy program to install residential cisterns and water catchment. And I know for myself, with my about 1,000 square foot garden, that's it. That's all the water I need for the whole year. So it really actually could make a big impact. So I'd love to see if there could be some more support to help people be educated and to install this, especially when you pay for water, it does pay off in the long run. So that's great.
Yeah, and I'll just say, Erica, to that point, after that meeting we had with the CFR, we did revise the West Coast Food Security Emergency Plan to include that specific recommendation in there. So you'll see that in the final version. So yeah, thanks again for bringing that up.
Anyone else? Any last thoughts? I don't see anything. Ione, thank you and all your team for all the great work.
I just want to say thanks to the whole agricultural community and those involved in the food system. Such a joy getting to know the Alberni Valley better, and working with Anna and Amy was a thrill. So thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your involvement.
Yes, a thrilling community. Welcome to the Alberni Valley. We have bears and thrills, and a little bit of water. Lots in the winter. Thanks so much for coming. And we will move on now. We have another delegation from Kwantlen Polytechnic University. It's Kenton Victor. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen with the presentation.
Okay. Again, my name is Kent Mullenix. I'm the director of the Institute for Sustainable Food Systems at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. The ISFS is an applied research and extension unit that exists to advance robust regional food systems and family-based farming in British Columbia. With me today is Victor Martinez. He is my colleague in this research project that we're going to speak to you about. He is the lead in a research group at Kwantlen Polytechnic University in the Wilson School of Design called Future Explorations. And Future Explorations works with community and sector stakeholders to understand and address challenges in complex systems. And Dr. Martinez and his team are handling the community and sector engagement components of this large project. So we appreciate the opportunity to delegate and to tell you about this work that we are undertaking in Vancouver Island. And I want to be upfront. Ultimately, we want to solicit the endorsement of the Ag Advisory Committee and the regional district itself, and with no strings attached, just an understanding of what we're doing and an endorsement of it. I also want to acknowledge that Amy Needham is an advisor to this project, and we've been working with her for months as we conceptualize this and work to bring it to fruition. So we have begun this study, and the objectives are to quantify and describe Vancouver Island's current food system and identify the system's vulnerabilities and to model future food systems that could mitigate those vulnerabilities and to maximize island food self-reliance, and in the process confer opportunity for significant economic development. So essentially what we and with this, we want to also determine what it will take to make this a robust regional Vancouver Island resilient food system a reality. What kind of infrastructure, what kind of policies will enable it, what kind of finance needs to be attracted to build it, how it will operate, those kinds of things. So the part of the project that the Institute for Sustainable Food Systems is undertaking is to assess the current food system as a baseline and then model future food systems. And we've developed a computational model that seeks to delineate the food production capacity of a region and maximize food self-reliance. And with that data, then we work with the Ministry of Ag or the Statistics BC, and we run an input-output model to delineate the economic potential, the economic development potential of this regionalized food system. And so essentially what we are doing is providing the data-driven information that policymakers and the sector needs to confidently move forward to support building a robust Vancouver Island region food system. So, this work, this Vancouver Island study, is the third such study that we have conducted. We developed this methodology and the computational models in Southwest BC, and then we took it to and applied it to the Okanagan, and so Vancouver Island is our third study. The reports for both the Southwest BC bioregion food system study and the Okanagan bioregion food system study are downloadable from our website and give you a better idea of what we are trying to accomplish. Okay, with that, I'm going to just share that there are two streams of this work. One is community engagement and stakeholder engagement, and that's what Victor's group is leading, and he's going to talk about that. And then the second stream is the data generation and potentials modeling that I just spoke of, and I won't speak further about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Martinez now.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you very much. Just a little bit of a context. I'm a designer. I have no expertise in food. My expertise is I've been working for 16, 18 years in how design and systems thinking can help entangle complex social problems. With dozens and dozens of projects made in all sorts of themes, healthcare, housing, water access, traffic, all sorts of things. And Ken was very kind to invite me to do this community engagement. And the main driver or the main tool that we are proposing here is to use the methodology that I've been developing in the last, again, I says 15, 16 years. And we are proposing a series of workshops. So we already started these workshops in September in the Capital Region District and the Cowichan. So far, we have done 10 sessions with 52 people involved in total. So it's slowly taking up the speed. These workshops are organized in two different, let's say, groups. One is specifically addressing the food system actors, and the other one is the general public. There are 4 sessions, and the idea is that the first 3 sessions, these groups work independently. Because we need to hear them and we need to understand them in separate. And the idea then is in the 4th workshop, we bring all these people and all these ideas together. There is an option for participation online. So we're trying to make this as broad and as participative as possible. And through these first experiences that we have had in the Capital Region and Cowichan, we are also thinking about other type of participations, especially to engage the general public, that, to be honest and open and honest, completely honest, getting people into a workshop, we always get the people that are already aware and interested in the topic. We really want to know about what people are thinking from everybody, from people that have no idea that the food security is actually a thing that they have to be thinking about. So in a nutshell, these 4 sessions, if I approach this by telling the people what the problem is, that doesn't work. No, because each individual, each institution, each group has a very distinct and unique way of seeing the problem and feeling just part of the problem. So these sessions are designed in a way that all attendees, first and foremost, hear each other, reflect. There is this process of reflection, and then coming up all with ideas all together with these ideas. So my role here is to provide the tools, to provide these moments, to provide these reflections, to give you the chance, to understand how creativity works and how to come up with all these ideas that at the end is the main way of tackling complex problem, because there is no silver bullet for any complex problem. No, any complex problem require multiple coordinated interventions. And that's the idea at the end. No, we intention is to have very specific outcomes, very actionable things. We do this as the name of my group says, it's about exploring the future. So some of these ideas are to, going in the future 20, 30 years. And the idea is to have a series of outcomes like products, companies, new business model, new policies, new services. The outcomes of this workshop series is really broad. People right now, for example, from the Cowichan, I was just before this meeting, I was working with the interventions that they have planned, and we have more than 100 ideas of all the sorts of interventions. And what we do in our methodology is to understand how these interventions need to be coordinated to create actual systemic change. Because it's very easy to come up with ideas, but if we don't understand what type of idea it is in the large picture of things, many times those ideas just dissolve in time, they don't produce the changes that we think of, or the problem just comes back in a different way. And as I mentioned, we're doing this in all the regions. Our intention is to start in January in Nanaimo, and our goal is to start doing these workshops in Alberni in around March. Based on Amy's advice, that she's been so amazing helping us with this, and the unique characteristics of the region, we are planning to do twice these workshops, one in Port Alberni and another one in the coast, Ucluelet, probably. We will continue in the fall 2026 with the regions in the north, Comox, Strathcona, and Mount Waddington. And eventually, that this is part of the outcome that the community, you are the ones deciding how to, is then how all the regions and all the outcomes that each region achieve need to come together. So this is a long-term project. There is a lot of work to be done. And yeah, that's in an essence the plan. I'll give the word back to Kent. Oh, sorry. This is the online option. This is a interactive whiteboard where people can continue. So what is produced in these workshops are a series of diagrams and maps, and we digitize all this into this whiteboard, and people are given access to this whiteboard, so anybody can have a say. Thank you.
Yeah. So we won't go through this again, but I'll summarize. My half of the project is to generate data-driven information about the baseline of Vancouver Island's food system and the vulnerabilities in the food system. And then we're going to model future food systems based on land, population, diet, and with the objective of maximizing regional food self-reliance. And then we'll take that data and couple it with the province's input-output model to delineate the economic potentials of it in terms of income generation, job creation, tax generation, contribution to GDP, and et cetera. So our objective is twofold, again, to summarize. One is to engage the public, create awareness, and to understand what their thinking is in terms of a resilient food system future, and then to generate the data to make informed economic development and policy decisions and strategies to build a robust Vancouver Island food system that confers greater food self-reliance, food system resiliency, and food security. And with that, we will stop and answer any questions you might have. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, thanks very much, Kent and Victor. Appreciate your presentation. Are there any questions or comments?
I have one. So in investigating these, so what areas of agriculture did you look at on Vancouver Island? Did you look into the grain industry, end of it, potentials and things like that?
We're looking at every aspect of agriculture on the island, every aspect of food production on the island.
Did you get much input from any of the grain producers on Vancouver Island? Did you canvass them?
Any of the what? I'm sorry.
Any of the grain producers, the grain farmers on Vancouver Island?
We will. We will. We've just begun. Okay. We will understand completely what is going on agriculturally and food production wise on the island.
If I might add a little bit of there. So in the workshops that we have had so far, engagement has been good, but not ideal. For this process to be really, really fruitful, we need to have as many voices as possible and diverse voices in the room. And one of the main things that I've been hearing from the attendees is that we need to have in the room other people that are not in the room yet. And as I said, this is a marathon. This is a long-term project. What we are now envisioning as well is how can we engage with other actors, with other stakeholders. So my task is to gather as many voices as possible. I have a grant that is paying me for my time and all the resources here. So I'm envisioning with my team also for the food actors, for the food professionals, other ways to engage with them. So even if we have some voices that at the beginning are not there, we're trying to ensure that eventually we will add all these up, and eventually we'll have the perspectives that are necessary. And one last thing that I apologize, I forgot to mention, is that we are very interested in adding on top of what the regions have already been doing. I was listening to the presentation, the previous presentation, and obviously, we don't want to repeat anything. No, we want to build up from what is already been done and think about the missing bits. So one of the comments after the previous presentation was how can we ensure that these amazing reports and this amazing work, it doesn't end up just collecting dust. That's where we come in. No, that's where we need to ask the questions and say, okay, what are the possible things that will drive us there? What are the things that need to happen in order for this to continue going? And from all the different perspectives, and creating all the necessary structures and products, as again saying services or policies, whatever is needed, to continue these things in the long run.
All right, thanks very much. I really appreciate that. I know you guys are at the beginning of your project. So I expect we'll see you again, perhaps, and for another delegation, but we are going to have to move on to the rest of our agenda. I will make one comment, which is that I really appreciate that you're bringing the public in. And I think that is one place that is a great opportunity for education, and involving the public could actually contribute to changing the system or getting some different ideas and resources in place. So I think that's a really interesting take that I don't know that that's been included as much in some of the agile projects. So thank you very much for
people
coming.
are gonna drive transformation of the food system, so they have to be aware.
Yep, and there's definitely a lot of people in the public that don't know a lot about the food system. So, and no offense to anyone, we all know about our own things, right?
So, Heather, will it be possible to get formal endorsement from the AAC for this project?
Just so I understand, what are you looking for formal endorsement to come into the valley, or you have funding and stuff?
No, we're not
ready
looking for
already?
funding. Just saying this is a good project. We support it. We as we seek funding to support this, we need to be able to convey that the folks we're working with
are supportive of the project in general. Yeah, Amy's going to speak to that.
Just to clarify, so we've already got this, they've already delegated to the board themselves, and the board has already given me direction to work with them. So it's already gone through the board 100%. You don't have to feel shy about that.
All right, so then, yeah, it looks like you have the support of the ACRD, and we would welcome you back here to the ADC again. And definitely, it's great that you're working directly with Amy, because she can be helping to share information with the ADC committee as well. And I'd encourage everyone here to participate, and certainly to help get the public involved as well in this project.
Well, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So that was 2 delegations today, a lot of time, and but interesting information, and hopefully, man, there's still a lot to do, isn't there, to support agriculture? And we're going to move on with our meeting. We'll go to the correspondence for information, which you all received in your agenda package. Is there any questions or comments about that? I am seeing none. Can I get a motion that the ADC receives these items for information?
So moved.
Thank you. Sarah and Tanya, all in favor? Great. We have no requests for decisions at this time, and we'll move on to reports. So first from Amy Needham from the ACRD.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So everyone had a chance to read through my now I'm noticing it's very wordy report, so apologies for that. Just a lot going on. I'm happy to take any questions anyone has about anything in my report. One thing that I did want to highlight is the upcoming open house. There's a survey open right now for the Sprout Lake and Area OCP engagement project and comprehensive update project. So the survey link is active. If you click on the link that was in the agenda, it's active. I do encourage people to fill it out. We're moving out of the draft kind of vision and goals stage. We're starting to move into actual official community plan policy development. So the policies really are the meat and potatoes of an official community plan, which is a high scale, like a high level planning document kind of for the next 5 to 20 years. So in the interest of ensuring that agriculture is included as an important land use and that your voice is heard, I really do encourage everyone to both complete the survey and also to attend the open house if you have time. It's on November 25th at the Sprout Lake Community Hall. As you heard from the presentation that was just done on the agricultural water plan, generally an OCP is tailored to a specific area of electoral area of the regional district. However, with the location of both Sprout Lake and Great Central Lake in Area D, and the fact that they are so important to the area on a First Nations Indigenous level, a cultural level, water access and water distribution level potentially into the future, I do feel that this in particular is something that more people should be taking notice of than just saying, well, it's not my area. I don't live in Area D. The fact that those two water bodies happen to exist only in Area D means that particularly the input from the farming community would be greatly appreciated on the survey. As with anything that we do, the survey, if you open it and it's too long, only comment on what you want to comment on. There is no requirement to make comment on anything that you are not interested in commenting on in the survey. So that was one thing I wanted to highlight. And the other thing is just a huge shout out. If you haven't read the update for the winter cutworm monitoring that went on this season, please do take a chance to look at it. It looks like the outbreak, cross your fingers, is waning as we're hoping it would happen. So garnered a lot of good data. The lights and the trap setup, unfortunately, the lights were not sufficient to do any kind of attraction for the moths on a large scale. We do appreciate the awesome volunteers that took the time to run the traps. We did have Libby and Reg Avis are amazing, and they track moths of all species throughout the valley from their place up in Cherry Creek. And so they did confirm through their trapping that the numbers are on the wane. So please cross your fingers. Let me know though, the larvae are still active throughout kind of this wintry season. Please do let me know if you notice any outbreaks happening that are localized. I would really appreciate it. Are there any questions on my report? Tanya.
Thank you. One question on the OCP updates, because this is Sprout Lake that's in front of us. Are in general all the OCP updates kind of on schedule for the entire ACRD? Just kind of as a question. Yeah, just because because we're getting these done before we get to bylaw updates, and we all know there's a lot of great stuff that we're waiting for the agriculture bylaws to be updated. So I'm just curious on that timeline.
For sure. Yes. Generally on the timeline-ish, I'm going to say. We're heading towards completing the Area C and Area D in 2026, and then also launching the Beaufort and the Beaver Creek OCP updates next year as well. So that is still moving along. It will go into 2027, but I certainly see an opportunity for at least have some initial engagement with the farming communities in Beaver Creek and Beaufort, and if that opens up the door to making some zoning changes in the meantime, we can do that as well. I think we'll learn more about that in 2026, and then if we can work that into the work plan, we'll certainly try to find a way to do that.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question. In the report, we talked about the temporary use permit fees for agritourism. Those got waived this past April for agritourism accommodation. I'm just wondering, is there any work being done on the short-term rental policy itself outside of agritourism in regards to like the temporary use for only 3 years, you can only renew it once, where like is there any discussions for people that are coming up on either their second 3 years as up or they're renewed, and then what's happening after that if it's going to be a few more years until the bylaws are updated?
Yeah, there is some work happening. We don't have an answer on what that looks like exactly yet. We are, as part of the Area C and Area D engagement, we're having lots of discussions about how to manage short-term rentals, particularly in those communities where there's a lot of them. But yes, we've reissued a couple TUPs with different conditions of use, for example, and opened up the window for third and fourth TUPs, but I do recognize that that's not really the best way to use that tool moving forward. So I again expect as we continue with the OCP updates, we'll have more opportunity to talk to the residents about that, and there will be something coming for a longer term solution for short-term rentals. I also expect some changes from the province as well.
Go ahead, Russell.
This doesn't involve our farm or anything, but I've heard the concerns that farmers who do have these facilities have. And also, they were provided with the expectation that the regional district was going to amend its zoning bylaw, and that the zoning bylaw then would be consistent with the Agricultural Land Commission regulations and act. And that didn't happen. And I'm concerned if they might start to rub up against deadlines in terms of having that second term of a temporary use permit. And you're saying we aren't expecting to start on the OCPs until next year. And my concern is that stuff happens and that could be prolonged. And what we might experience here is another election and a change in leadership, which was perhaps part of the problem that we experienced the first time. So I would just like to encourage the regional district really to respect the circumstance that they're under, the fact that they're just trying to follow what the ALC has already established, and not prolong this or lead to any risk of delays that could put them in a pickle. Thanks.
Thank you for articulating a summary of my two questions very well.
All right, so there was some good info and some feedback there. Thanks. Amy, go ahead. Yeah, you have the other part about the UBCM, I think.
Close. The precursor to the UBCM, the AVICC. So the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities conference comes first. That is more of a regional association for our area, Vancouver Island, that Powell River, kind of islands and things like that. So basically, I'm looking for people to consider forwarding the ideas for resolutions if they want anything brought forward. Please bear in mind, I did confirm with our general manager of administrative services that they are trying to get a handle on the number of resolutions that are coming forward. It is just becoming overwhelming, the number of resolutions that are coming up through the regional associations and then to UBCM. So keeping a handle on them all is becoming beyond their capabilities. And so they're looking at, AVICC is looking at only 3 resolutions from each of their members coming to AVICC. So just to keep that in mind, if there are any ideas coming forward, I'll definitely can draft the background, bring it to the board. The board will make the decision on which, if any, are brought forward to AVICC. And also, I'm not sure if anyone got to the end of the report because, things happen. But there is a second option if someone wants to ruminate on something to request me to conduct the background research on proposed resolution and then circulate to the committee via email for comment before forwarding to the board. So there's that option as well. We do all have emails, so we can do that.
Can you just confirm what is the date? What's the deadline to get something to you?
I would appreciate it if There is, because it is going to the board in January. So if I would say the end of the year is pretty much the hard and fast date because I need time to draft a staff report and do all my research. But the sooner the better. So if you're ruminating on stuff or if you want to have discussion here, if anyone saw this in the agenda and decided to bring something forward, I would love you to.
Thanks, I did. So kind of segue from my previous questions on your first report in there. Being a producer who has agritourism accommodation and going through all the paperwork and things being in line with the ALC regulations plus the regional district. And last year, the province implemented a new short-term rental regulation for all short-term rental host operators. I would like to discuss or move forward on, depending on this committee. The province has some exemptions for if you are on reserve lands or if you're on treaty or Treaty First Nation lands that you do not need to register with the province as per the short-term rental registry. It's $450 a year and is the annual fee to be registered with this. And so because, and I mean, I'm going to speak to in particular on ALR lands with farm status, because that's part of one of the ways that we're allowed to do this. This is one of the few things that we can do in the ALR is I would like a resolution that the province consider exempting farm status properties with agritourism as an exemption for the STR since it's already under regulation through the ALC in the province. Why regulate it twice?
Just for a point of clarification, are you talking about the exemption for the province's short-term rental registry? That's the exemption?
For hosts in the ALC with farm status, because it's already regulated under the ALC. So there's already these certain parameters we have to be in. And it kind of blows my mind that we're paying an annual fee to a different leg of the province to do what we're allowed to do under ALC with farm status. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. That's a great idea, I would say. And interesting because it is, yeah, what the UBCM is basically supporting the province to policy that the province says. And what you're suggesting there would be a great support to farmers across the province, even if it's, you know, let's call $450 a year small, but it's a great support and less paperwork and all that. So that's a really tangible way that the province could support farmers. Particularly because they're already, like you said, it's already covered under the ALC. So I think that's a great idea. Any other comments? I see a thumbs up from Erica. And yeah, I think we could do a motion. I don't know if I can make motions. I don't really want to word a motion. But I think, yeah, that would be an appropriate process point if the committee is in support of that idea that we could make a motion that the ACRD draft. There, Amy's going to say something to clarify.
There's no,
something.
sorry, this wasn't a request for decision. There's no motion attached to it, but if I know that this is of interest to the committee, and then I'll go ahead and do it. It's the board's decision. So it'll go to the board and they'll make the decision if it's going up through AVICC or not. So.
Can I? Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that one at that. I can fight a different time with the regional district.
I guess in terms of the motion idea, it was just basically what I'm seeing here is that the people that have spoken are in support of this. And so if that's something helpful to add so that the board understands that we've discussed it, that would. So Amy says that she will put that in the background. Okay, thank you very much. We're all done with staff reports then. Are there any other resolutions? Is another good question. I was sort of thinking myself if had been ideas of things that had been coming up repeatedly that we could put forward. And actually, this is kind of one of the things that's been coming up repeatedly. So I think that's a great one. And if anyone has any other ideas in the next month or so, then please forward them to Amy, and Amy can share them with all of us. And we will leave that at that and move on to the city of Port Alberni, although Pat is not here. So we're going to skip that. And Helen from SD70.
Thank you. I submitted reports, so I don't want to take up any time and go through it all, but if anyone has any questions, I'm here.
Yeah, thank you. And I will say thanks to everyone who submitted reports, because it's really nice. Everybody can read them and it does save time at the meetings, but please feel free to ask questions or make additional comments if you have any. Hearing none. Tom Odell, do you have anything to report from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food?
Well, I should just point out that some of our programs are open year-round, like the Environmental Farm Program. There is currently funding for individual producers for larger scale water infrastructure and also for plans signs through the Environmental Farm Program. I believe there's also funding for Fire Smart farm and ranch assessments at present as well. People want to know more about that, they're welcome to reach out to me at any time. That's all I have at present. Also, I appreciate the invitations. I'm always interested to see what's going on in the local governments. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Tom. You just reminded me of something. So I just got a news release across my email this morning that Investment Agriculture Foundation opened their intake today for agricultural water infrastructure program. The intake is open for 1 month. So if any producers out there in YouTube land or here at the table are interested in looking at that, it's Investment Agriculture Foundation Agriculture Water Infrastructure Program, the producer stream. So.
All right, thanks. And thank you, Tom. We like having you. So, and also that just reminding everyone that actually in some of the information was a bulletin from the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and that's a regional newsletter that people can sign up for. Next, we have the Alberni Farmers Institute. That would be Wayne.
Yes, we just had our annual general meeting last week, and I see Lisa's here, and maybe she'd like to just kind of explain what we did with the donation to the rescue squad and why we did it, if she's still there. Okay, I guess not. So what, she's off somewhere getting a cup of coffee maybe, but so what happened was last year there was the big wind incident, and the Alberni Valley Search and Rescue Squad went out to the end of Beaver Creek, opened up roads, went around and made sure that all of the farmers were not in jeopardy or in crisis of some kind. And so we responded by doing a $500 donation to the rescue squad. We went down there, a few of us went down there last week, and they were pretty appreciative and gave us a good chance to kind of explain what we were doing and how welcome they are, even behind welcome or locked gates that, you know, because they're pretty, you know, they're up against that kind of a thing, and didn't know if there was trees across buildings, fire lines or whatever. So they did a great job. We were very appreciative, and so that was a good thing. So our annual general meeting, we discussed the studies that we'd done, the water and the emergency planning, and I think the Farmers Institute will be doing a letter, we'll be reviewing a letter of support for the emergency plan. I think Anna had asked for that, so we're going to be discussing that at our next meeting. And at our annual general meeting, I think the other big subject, of course, was the recent horrific incident with the ostriches. So, you know, we went over that quite a bit, and so I think at this point, in order to kind of explain it, I'm going to like to put a motion on the floor. That's okay, and it'll open up the dialogue. We can talk about it. And that motion would be something like to get the Agricultural Development Committee demand the government, federal and provincial, and the Canada Food Inspection Agency to abandon their mass euthanization of animals that are obviously not sick. That's our policy. We want a policy change. And so this is what we had discussed. This is, I think, something we need to do to really get in a little deep, do a deeper dive on. That's something that's sort of, you know, if you talk to a lot of people in the public, they, you know, they're pretty horrified by what happened, and we have a lot of public support on us. Some of the farmers are either way on it, so we need to open the discussion on that. That's my motion.
Thanks, Wayne. We'll just all bring it together here. It was something I said at the farmers meeting, Farmers Institute meeting, was just around the so many different points of view and so much different information that are or perspectives that people have around it, and how we as a community can kind of model something that has us talking and sharing and working together to solve some of these difficult problems that are, you know, this is one example of the many that are going on. And so the ADC is a venue where I believe people can put motions out to the group. One question I had was whether the Farmers Institute, is that something that the Farmers Institute had moved that we bring to the ADC?
Yeah, let me clarify. That's a good point. No, this motion is coming from me as a director on the Farmers Institute. We have not had an opportunity to run this past the rest of the institute directors. So we will be bringing this up. But based on the comments that were made at the meeting, I feel it's appropriate I make that motion here now, because there's not going to be another development committee meeting here till next year. This is just hot off the press. I think we need to, you know, do something now. I think we need to address this now. I'd just like to see the motion sent as a demand to the governments in the Canada to review their policy and abandon it. There's a fire brewing all around the province right now, just getting ready to get going on this very same issue. So I think if we're the first to actually come out as a group and ask for this change, I think that it would help.
Thanks, Wayne. And yeah, I just welcome people to share any of their own feedback or comments about that. And I see Patty.
Sorry, I just need a little bit of clarification, mostly because my hearing is really bad. We're talking about the ostrich thing, correct?
Well, the ostrich thing is the latest and most horrific of all the incidents that have been going on, not just in Canada, but in through parts of the United States too, where they're just wiping out millions of friggin' birds and this and that all over the place. You know, the whole policy of that seems to be, it flies in the face of nature. You know, this is not right. This is totally wrong. This needs to be addressed. You don't wipe out animals that are obviously healthy. Nature takes care of that. When they get sick, they die. Then the rest of them become immune, and that's what happened with the ostriches. A percentage of them died, the rest became immune. We lost an opportunity to let nature take its course.
Patty, just follow up because you were asking for clarification, and then we'll go to Bob.
Okay, thank you. I feel I have to step in. Most people here know that I am a retired veterinarian, and I am retired, and I have actually raised a lot of poultry over the years. I know a number of veterinarians within the CFIA, and I respectfully, I couldn't support that motion in that we need to ask them to stop doing it, perhaps to do more research into it, but there are a lot of valid scientific reasons why these kind of culls at the moment need to occur, in my opinion, speaking as a veterinarian. So I think it's a very complex, complicated issue. And I personally couldn't support a motion saying to tell the government they have to stop doing this, or the veterinarians they have to stop doing this, because at the moment it's the best method that has been put forward to control these kind of outbreaks when we're looking at the potential for a public health issue. And that is the potential behind, and the main reason this is happening right now is concerned that the avian influenza virus will mutate and start human to human spread and perhaps start another pandemic. That's the concern.
Okay, thanks, Patty. I want to let people speak a little bit because this is a big issue. However, of course, this is a meeting and we have like another 20 minutes, so we could have a whole meeting about the ostriches. So I welcome people to speak, and we're just going to hear from the voices who want to go ahead. So I've got Bob and then Star.
All of this technology is beyond me. I have some concerns about the idea of what Wayne is proposing, simply beyond the health. I mean, that's a terrible thing that all those ostriches went. However, as you mentioned, that they would slaughter all these animals that are sick. Most poultry farms are filled with healthy animals that are days away from slaughter at any given time anyway. But one of the broader issues with any of this stuff is that we have arrangements with other countries to export food there, and they have all kinds of rules. Like when the water buffalo, and we knew we're friends of the people that had the water buffalo, that was a heart-wrenching thing. However, what was at stake was, if you don't deal with this way, you're not going to sell meat to whatever country they're exporting it to. And I think that's an issue that you have to consider from the farm aspect, is that it may very well may be shooting yourself in the foot to maintain exports of agricultural products to other countries. It needs more, certainly more study before I would be comfortable. I just saying we demand that you stop this. The other thing is the ostriches, if they back off the ostriches, they set the precedent so that everybody else that's got it, then rather than being able to go in and try and control that stuff immediately, you're wound up in, you're going to be waiting while it goes through several other legal channels to decide whether it's there. And lots of times it's sort of stuff relies, I think, for effectiveness on being done in a very timely fashion.
Okay, Wayne, I know that you're going to have more to say, and that's fair. But I want to go to Star and keep letting everybody have some voices. And I will say too, Wayne, that you're not alone, and we know that because there are lots of people who have strong concerns about this. Okay, and Star.
I think the outrage for how this whole situation unfolded is fairly unanimous. I listened to a ton of interviews on both sides. As a livestock producer that has struggled with a couple of contagious diseases, I know this near and dear to my own heart. And I would not be comfortable with a no call situation, but and my understanding of the history of that particular farm is that they've had several cases over several years and refused the actions that were requested, and that was containment. And I think, and most of us farmers, if we had a contagious disease and were asked by the province or the federal government to contain those animals, we would, right? And I think that it's a tragedy that they were lost. I think that there was an opportunity for science to move forward. There's some really fascinating things about the avian flu and how it lives in the brain, and how when it's in the brain, it's not contagious. And I think that there was some really good resource opportunities. But I also think that by not cooperating, they forced themselves into a situation that got really ugly. And I think that the way they euthanize those animals is totally unethical. You know, to shoot them at night and come back in the morning and find live animals, you know, like that's totally unacceptable. So I do support that what they did should not be tolerated, but I don't know that no call ever is the right answer.
Thanks, Star. I appreciate all the different parts of this. Is so complex. Are there any other comments or about this? I see Wayne again. Go ahead.
Okay, just to kind of expand a little bit on that, there's a lot of, we've heard a lot of the rationale why they do these calls. And, and every one of them, when you really put them to the light of day, they don't hold water. One of them is the export market to be protected. Page 14, the Country Life. Have you read that? There is no export market on chicken. We are importing and we're in a crisis situation. There's not enough birds out there for the public demand. There's nothing to protect. The same as going with the beef industry. We got fewer cows. We're not exporting beef anymore. We're going to be importing it from New Zealand and other places. So we're not going to protect a market that doesn't exist anymore. So that one is the first one. As far as back to, I did some research, and I'm not a biologist by any means, so you know a lot more. But from what I read, was that these viruses evolve, and that was one of the fears in these things. But you know something? Apparently, if these viruses do not evolve, they go extinct. If they go extinct along with everything else, they are very needed in nature, just like weeds. We tend to treat these things, or to look at them like they're an enemy, but they're not. This is what gives us life on the planet. This is what nature's all about. And we are following the God of science rather than the God of nature. And that is really, really wrong. We know in our hearts what's right and what's wrong. We need to actually listen there, not to listen to the fog that's out there in dialogue. It changes like the weather. That's all I got to say on this. I was waiting for a seconder on the motion, but
Thanks, Wayne. I see Russell.
Yeah, very briefly, because I'm not a voting member on this, but I'll say what I said to the Farmers Institute as a commercial grower, and we have 2 different species on our farm. I realize there may come the day where CFIA comes to me and I have to eliminate my herd. That's a fact. That's something I have to accept. I will work with them. I will cooperate, but I will ensure that they compensate. That's all I can do. And just, measles is back, people. We need our federal institutions and provincial institutions to protect us and do the things that are necessary. And sometimes that takes sacrificing our part. And sometimes maybe it's a blind belief to some of you, but it's a belief that they know what is best. They're not always right, but they are acting in our interest. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Like I say, I think this is so important for people to be able to talk about. So I appreciate that everybody can. And so your time, I know, as a chair. Wayne, like you said, nobody moved the motion. And I don't think it would be easy to get the motion just hearing like the strength of what people are thinking. I had thought about this issue prior to the meeting. I do think that governments, including local governments, are important voices when there are these public issues that are challenging and where there's information that's very divisive and sometimes information that is not shared or known and that's getting out there. The only question that I would ask is, I guess with that in mind about who the ADC is as a local government, a committee of a local government, a committee of farmers and people involved in the food system. I wonder if there's anything that we can say that we do agree on that could be brought to the government. And even within something like that, that we can acknowledge that there are different perspectives on this, that some people feel very strongly one way, and some people feel very strongly the other. But what is something, if anything, that we could bring to the province? Or, well, this is actually also CFI is federal, of course. But is there anything like that that we could say? And I guess I'll just put that forward.
if I could add one more thing, this is an agricultural development committee group to promote agriculture. When you have, in my own, like my own feelings over this whole thing is, like I can't imagine what they went through to have and I got cows and that, to have them come and do that. I wouldn't be able to take it. I'd just rather get out of agriculture. This is not promoting agriculture, it's driving people away from it, especially to do with animals and that. We want to be independent. We want to, these are our family. I just can't imagine what it would be like. I would rather not have the animals. That just takes me in another direction away from food security. I think that's something that we need to really look at. We're a development advisory committee. We need to find a way to encourage agriculture, not.
I haven't done all the research all you have, but what I have heard is obviously we all care about animals and how the method in which calls happen. Perhaps we can agree on the timeliness and the procedures need to be reviewed.
Thanks, Sarah. It's kind of the sort of the idea is like, where can we put little nuggets that we do agree on as an agricultural community, because many of us raise animals and we all do very much care about these issues. And just to follow up on that. Oh, Lisa, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, just follow up with what Sarah has put forward as well. How the cull was done, how the World Health Organization for Animal Health, I think is what it was. They had particular ways in order to deal with poultry and ostriches. Ostriches are different than poultry as well. There's a bunch of information, as Wayne has said, has come out. A lot of different opinions of how things have happened. More stories are coming out about other people's experiences with CFIA, false positives, destruction of entire herds, and generations of building a business and herd genetics and all the rest of it, I think really needs to be looked into. So, science seems to kind of waft back and forth upon how some policies are also being pushed forward nowadays, it seems. So I agree with Sarah, how you word things, how this call went about, were policies actually followed, as there has been some direction in how to deal with particular species. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. I am not the smartest person in the room, so I don't really know where to go with this. Sarah put forward an idea, maybe not a motion, but something along the lines. I'm wondering how we could develop something that we want to say as a group, if that's something we want to do. And I think part of the problem is just the information. Not everybody's aware of all the information, and none of us are experts on everything. So we have some side conversation here.
I'd just like to say also that it is a lot of information to process. I'm not sure if it's something you can do in one meeting. People really need to take a look at all the information that's out there. My concern is this push to, as we all know, or maybe some know, the government has purchased avian flu vaccines. And my concern is that there is going to be a mandate that animal producers are then forced into vaccinations on their animals when they have maintained clean herds and don't wish to experiment with their food supply. Thanks.
Yes, which would be a later problem, however, fair. And that's part of the complication of these issues, is that these things so deeply affect us and can affect us in the long term. I think that we need to have more opportunities to talk like this. And we have one of the smartest people in the room. If I could say, Russell maybe has an idea.
Just advice, right? We don't have to. We don't have to respond to this. We have a lot of reports and recommendations going to the board. And we have now probably spent more time on ostriches. There's been more dialogue amongst us on ostriches, which we all really don't know much about. Some of us know a lot, but we didn't have a report. We didn't have any background, right? Do we want the board focusing their attention and energy on ostriches, or do we want them focusing their energy and attention on the resolutions that we brought forward to ABICC and the recommendations of the 3 reports? So don't feel you have to do anything. And what do you want the board to spend their time on? Our local issues or something bigger and broader that we don't have a lot of background on?
Thanks, Russell. That's helpful. And my tendency would be to agree with you. And I guess I kind of spend some time on this because I care so much about this community. And, you know, these are problems we're all facing. And I think we face them together and we have to deal with each other all the time. But yeah, that's it. Shall we just stop now and move on? Because there are other reports that need to go in. And Wayne.
One final word. Just to answer, Russ says, yeah, I tend to agree with that. This is just one issue, but this is an important, this is a hot button topic right now that really is important. It really sets the tone for future development in agriculture. So I think that's something, if we don't deal with it now, it gets put on a shelf. If we don't have accountability, it'll come back again and again. Each time when you start down the wrong path, the path gets worse. At some point, you can't turn around and go back.
Thanks. And like you say, I agree with that too. And another suggestion that perhaps if there's the desire, and I think the point you make is important, that is stuff can affect all of us in the long term. And maybe it's something that the Farmers Institute could also look at and maybe try and, I think this is an agricultural development committee, and those are things that affect farmers obviously, and maybe some of the starting point in terms of making a statement as a community of farmers could start at the Farmers Institute and then be brought back here to share. But with that, one more thing. Thanks, Amy.
Hello. So I just wanted to clarify when you to the committee, just a point of procedure that sometimes gets lost in like, where do we stand as a committee and how do we like get things moving forward? This is just for down the line. So just to keep in the back of your minds that the committee doesn't have the ability to direct staff directly. That is a prerogative of either my bosses or the board, generally the board. So if the committee ever does want to advance something that you want, maybe myself or Alex or another staff member to take on and to write a letter or to do anything like that, the proper procedure to consider is doing a motion to ask the board to direct staff and then fill in the end of that with whatever you want the board to direct staff to do. It can go to the next board meeting, the board will make the decision and either they'll direct staff or they won't. So it just gives you an idea of like how to progress and you're kind of like, where do we take it from here? One suggestion that I can make that it's not on either side of the discussion because that's not my place, but there is a small flock poultry health network that does exist and they are active in some of the events that they put on. Is like small flock euthanasia of your animals. You know, you want to get started in poultry farming. How do you euthanize your animals and how do you fall within regulations and things like that? So they do deal in small flock poultry health. That is their kind of mandate or their jam, as it were. And so if the committee so wish and they were interested, then there could be an opportunity for me to reach out to their executive director and see if they're available for a delegation on kind of the small flock sort of side of things, because we don't have any large, huge poultry barns in Alberni Valley as yet, but there are people that have backyard chickens and there are people that depend on them for things like food security and for selling on a smaller scale and things like that. So that is a group that exists and there is the opportunity to maybe perhaps have them come to the next committee meeting or canvas for their availability and to kind of give that perspective from kind of a position of knowledge.
you.
Thanks, Amy. And they did do a workshop last year as well, so that's something they do. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll just say I appreciate that there is a process and that any direction to you would have to come from the board of directors. But I also think it's really important that this is a committee of community members. So we don't have to go to the board for everything, and whether staff can help us with some things, maybe that's the question, but the community always, and the people around this table do have some, this is an opportunity for us to do things on our own as well. So just to put that in there. Let's move on, because these things are important too, like the fall fair. And do you have anything to add to your report?
I'll just make it real short and sweet because I didn't send in a report. The 2025 fair was a success. There was over 22,000 people in attendance over the 4 days. 10,000 people came on Saturday. It was, as you probably noticed in the agriculture area, there was a lot of people. Normal would be about 75. Yeah, so quite a few more. Yes, which just kind of shows you that the community is growing as well. So, yeah, it was pretty. It was phenomenal. It was congested in the front of the building. We recognize that, and we recognize that we need to work on this. We had a great group of volunteers this year, and we recognized them this last Saturday at a dinner. We utilize Volunteer Local app, and it which tracks the people's volunteer hours, which is really great for us when we're going out and getting grants. So just really helps in that respect. So our new farm gate brochure, I have to apologize. I just noticed today there was a spelling mistake on it. It's from the front page of all things. So we're going to have to try to get this reprinted. But I'd like to.
Stephanie's already phoned Hool. She's like, I'm gonna throw up, and she's like, I'm gonna personally pay. And I'm like,
no, you're not.
Whoa, hold off. Just get a.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. So
a lot of people saw it, and none of us all went, oh, Valley, of course, no E.
Anyway, this has been widely distributed into the neighborhood welcome packages. So, and I think they're being well received because they've asked for more. So maybe nobody's noticed that the Valley is spelled wrong. I don't know. I can honestly say, I can honestly say I had the blocks in front of me for a month and a half, 2 months, and I didn't really look at them. So, but I'd like to thank the Doc Plus, the ACRD, and AV Food Security for their support to make this happen. So yeah, that's all for now.
Thanks, Anne, and thanks for that wonderful work and for getting everybody out for agriculture. Next, the Alberni Valley Food Security Society, Anna. Oh, sorry, a question. Okay, moving on to Anna, the other, yeah.
Yeah, so I did send in a report. So the only additional things would be our Dry Creek Community Garden lease is extended for another 3 years. So we'll be there till December of 2028. And then the online directory. So that's, we got a small portion of money to collate and host online directory. So we're calling it the Farm Fish Forage directory. It's for primary producers. This is not for your sourdough bakers, your jam makers. This is for the people actually, if you're making jam from things that you have grown or foraged, yes, you can be a part of it. But we're looking for primary producers. So we got it online for people to do their submissions last Wednesday, right before the Farmers Institute meeting. So people can go to our website, so the www.abfood, and then it's /FFF submit. And so that is and we're planning on like it'll actually go live and online. We figure we'll launch it at our CD Saturday event because that's going to be February 14th. We can do some love your local blah blah farmers, fishers, foragers, something fun. Yeah, so I just want to make sure that people get on it. It is free. It is yeah, so it's just something that has been talked about for forever, and now we're actually doing it.
Thanks. It's a great addition to the paper. Growers Guide have an online one. And oh, Sarah.
Do you think you could forward that information? I'll send it out to the members of the farmers market, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, that will be forwarded to the farmers and market. And I encourage anyone out there also to forward it along to their own members of whatever organization they're in. Eat West Coast, Erica.
I don't have any exciting new updates. A lot of ongoing things from previous. There's the Coastal Foods Roundtable report from Katie Miles in the end of your agenda package, as well as the emergency planning information, which covers some big pieces. At our Coastal Foods Roundtable, we had very lively discussions about emergency planning. And I also want to share that some of the communities are actually really moving forward. Toquat Nation and Equifet government, I mean, they're committing resources now to their emergency planning. So things are happening. It's not just all this consultation. So it's really exciting to see. And just since we won't be meeting again before this happens, the Clackamas Biosphere Trust grants will be open in like usually late January, February. And we receive a significant amount of applications related to food. And although we prioritize communities and organizations on the coast, we are able to support Alberni organizations or initiatives that have a coastal component. And in particular, we've been really excited to see more of the Banfield and Cala region like getting involved with the coast. And so if there's ways we could better support them, they're technically outside our jurisdiction, so they don't take priority in our granting, but still, please reach out if anyone in that area has some ideas. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. I know we have the Spirits Worth Farmers Market and 4-H, and I also know Tanya and you have to go because of things. So could we move Tanya first and then we'll come back to you guys? So let's go with Tanya first.
Thank you. I submitted a real quick report. It's in the agenda. Unless anybody had any questions, I don't really have anything to add from the farm.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Okay. Thanks, Tanya. So Spirit Square Farmers Market, Sarah?
We had an excellent summer season. The Doc Plus was a sponsor of our Music at the Market, which I think created a great community atmosphere. We loved it. We also shared our table at the fall fair with the Doc Plus, so really loving collaborating. The Community Futures Alberni Clayoquot sponsored our Spirited Kids Market. Hopefully you saw the young entrepreneurs in the newspaper. So that was really exciting. It was so hot. I unfortunately put myself and my daughter right in the sun. So that was really good. And we're going to do it again next year. So again, another great community partnership that has happened. We have our AGM coming up December 2nd. Everyone's welcome to attend, especially if you're a member. And I don't think I have anything else to report. We're looking for a market manager, also creative ideas on how to get that funded somehow, because it is a commitment, and being a market manager and a vendor is not ideal, especially because I'm at the busiest table. So we're looking at creative solutions, perhaps with the Grove Art Gallery sharing a summer student or something like that. Any ideas are welcome.
Thanks, Sarah. And I'll just give you kudos because I know you kind of got shoved into that and you were voluntold. So lots of good work. Well done. You should get kudos. And we have Patty for 4-H.
I did submit a report and nothing's really changed from that. I just want to point out that We were really overwhelmed by the support for 4-H this year. It was really a rebuilding year in the Valley, and next year we'll continue on with that. But both at the fall fair and we did some fundraising where basically the members went around and talked to some organizations, and the amount of money that came in was really overwhelming. So there's a lot of support for 4-H in the community, which we're extremely appreciative of. We had 34 members this year and 26 achieved, which means they completed everything they need to complete at the provincial level to basically finish the year. And we've got at least 10 potential people to join for this coming year. So things are looking pretty positive. So thanks for all your support, everybody.
Thanks. And you get kudos too, because you came into this and there's like suddenly, I've actually heard lots of stuff about 4-H going on and reports from the fair and all that. So well done to you too. And lastly, because there's no one from the marine scene here, we'll go to primary producers and wondering if anyone else has anything to share. Anna.
I'm not sharing anything, but what I would like to see happen at our next meeting, because this is a trend that I've seen, is that our primary producers have to leave. And they're the very last item. I think they should be second after Amy's report. So I would like to see this O change to a B for our next meeting. Like Bob goes and picks up grandkids, and it's the same with them. And I would really appreciate hearing what they have to say. That's, yeah.
Kudos to you too. Excellent recommendations. Farmers first, right? I mean, and everybody else first too. But great idea. And hopefully Amy can action that without a report. Without direction from the board. I think we can do that. Great. Wayne.
If I can just add to what you just said, I think that'd be important to do that because you know, part of being a farmer is to recognize opportunities in business, you know, and right now what's currently going on in the Valley is, and not just on the Valley, and all of Vancouver Island pretty well, is we have an overabundance of hay. It's just all over the place. You know, nobody can move hay for a couple of reasons. We've got a couple of fairly good years, but also the main one is the lack of animals to livestock. Is, you know, we're losing our livestock in a big numbers. So, you know, we need to switch. There's, you know, these are good productive lands. We can't let the forest take them over. A lot of people are going to lose their farm status if they don't get some kind of an income. So they're looking for opportunities. And one of the ones that, and when I started my business 15 years ago, I just, maybe more luck than anything else, I figured grain is where it's at because, you know, every sector of agriculture uses it. And we got some good opportunities here, you know, for that. So if anybody, if you know anybody that is, got land, look how many fields are around this year that never got cut for hay even, and they just became, in my fear, just a big fire hazard, you know, just a way for wildfire to race across the field to the next guy's yard, you know. So you know, we need to cut there, we need to do something with the land, and we just can't let it go back to the forest. Maybe we can, I don't know. But you know, so we need to find something like that. So I'm really big on trying to recommend that people look at grain and not in a prairie size type of an operation, just small scale to do something. And I do like rye. You find anything if you got fields that are good and you know, dry enough, you can put in a fall crop. There's a good strong market for that on the island in mushrooms and in alcohol and not only in feed even. So anyhow, just something to. So I agree with, you know, we actually need to develop a business plan for farmers, and I think farmers should be at the front of anything. I agree with her. Thanks.
Sarah. Thanks, Wayne.
I just want to ask Russell a question. The family farm days, I noticed more coupons were redeemed. How did you find the farm sales this year compared to years prior?
Very good. I really appreciate Family Farm Day and all the other initiatives that there are out there to support ourselves and everybody else. It's really doing us a lot of good. And we're finding that there's just a lot of new people moving to the Valley that are grateful and glad to be here, love the place. They're looking for these opportunities that we're providing at our farmers markets, our farm stands, and the things that Wayne and others are doing. So kudos to all of you, the regional district, for helping support us. We're definitely seeing the difference. And just since this is my report, one final note, November the 2nd, Melanie gave birth to William Henry. And there's no coincidence that Bill Thompson was my son's best friend and mentor, and that the boy's name should be William. So his spirit lives on.
I can just add to the family front because I track all that. Like all the participants get a survey at the end. I think you guys were up about $900 this year, Bob and Ann. It was just within a couple $100 of what it had been the previous year, but everyone seems to get, like, if they're on every year, it seems to be a bit higher in terms of their actual sales. And I don't know if I put in my report what the total cumulative sales was, but I think you did. Well, I gave you the numbers too. So yeah. So that is all tracked, and it's been an upward trajectory. And I think it's just I know when I was talking to Jennifer too, things like the family farm day, people come and then they're like, oh, I know where it is. And oh my God, it's open every Saturday. And what a great place. I mean, I go there on a Saturday and it's almost as busy as family farm day. It seems like sometimes it's like there's no parking. There's lots of people. And I bring company like from out of town. It's like I live 5 minutes away and who doesn't want to see baby water buffalo? They're so cute, or eat, buffetta. And yeah, it's all good stuff. So.
Oh, Lisa. Thanks.
I'd just like to say that we've had great support from the community. We're pretty much sold out of beef for this year. Our next beef is probably not going to be, the next beef is actually spoken for. Now we got to wait for the livestock to grow, to catch up. And looks like it might not be until February. So it's a great problem to have. The comments we get from people, they're happy to know where it's grown, how it's grown, that it's as local and as natural as possible. So we're happy to provide that. We are limited in how much we can do, however, so it makes it a little harder when, we do sell whole sides of beef, because then we can't get it down to the market. But I guess it's a good problem to have. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. I guess it's like farmers last. It means good news, which is kind of a good thing, right? It could be super negative, and it's not. So some nice things. If there's nothing else from any producers, I will ask for a motion that the ADC accepts all these reports for information.
So moved, Ann.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Wayne, for seconding. All in favor? Yay. Is there any late business? Yeah, okay. So there's no late business. And questions. So were there any questions from the public?
No, there are no questions from the public. There are a couple comments just from Director Cote on Zoom.
Oh, great.
Just saying that this has been a great meeting, excellent dialogue, and congratulations to Russell for the grandbaby.
Thanks. And yeah, I will thank everyone personally for just, coming along for the ride and spending a few extra minutes. Oh my goodness. Okay. And our next meeting is Tuesday, February 17th at 12:45 here in the boardroom with lunch and hopefully pie this time. And I will adjourn this meeting now at the late hour of 3:03. Thank you so much.
Good luck on your future pie action. And great meeting. Thank you.